I thought I knew what trust felt like. 3 years of marriage to Madison, a decade of friendship with Kyle. We had Friday night barbecues, Sunday football, the kind of life you see in movies, and think that is what happiness looks like. Simple, comfortable, real. But comfort can blind you. Trust can betray you. And sometimes the people closest to your heart are the ones holding the knife. I came home early one afternoon and found them in my bed. In that moment, everything I believed in shattered. But instead of falling apart, I made a choice that changed everything. Before we dive into how I turned the worst betrayal into the best decision of my life, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. And if you have ever had to rebuild after everything fell apart, hit that like button and subscribe because this story might just change how you see heartbreak. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Madison and I met at a charity event, 4 years before everything fell apart. She was wearing this yellow dress that caught the light every time she moved, and when she laughed at something, her friends said I knew I had to talk to her. We dated for 2 years before I proposed on a beach at sunset, nothing fancy, just us in the ocean. She said yes before I even finished asking. We got married in a small ceremony with family and close friends. Kyle stood next to me as my best man, grinning like an idiot, making jokes about how I was punching above my weight. Maybe he was right. Madison worked as a marketing coordinator for a small fashion company downtown. She would come home talking about campaigns and photo shoots, her eyes bright with excitement. I was a project manager at a software company, pulling in a decent salary, nothing spectacular, but enough to keep us comfortable. We rented a 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs, the kind of place with thin walls and a landlord who took 3 weeks to fix anything. But it was ours. We had plans. Save up for a house. Maybe start a family in a few years. The future felt solid. Kyle had been my friend since junior year of college. We met in an economics class, both of us struggling through supply and demand curves, bonding over terrible cafeteria coffee and all-nighters before exams. After graduation, he landed a sales rep position at a pharmaceutical company. The job had him traveling a lot, visiting doctors' offices and hospitals across 3 states. When he was in town, the 3 of us would hang out. Kyle would bring over beer, we would fire up the grill, and Madison would make her famous potato salad. We would sit on our tiny balcony talking about nothing important, laughing until our sides hurt. Those were good days. Days I took for granted. About 6 months before my world exploded, I started noticing small changes. Madison began working late more often. She would text me around 7 in the evening saying she had to finish a presentation or meet a deadline. I did not think much of it at first. Her company was growing, taking on bigger clients. It made sense she would be busier. But then came the phone. She started guarding it like it held state secrets. She would take it to the bathroom, keep it face down on the table during dinner, and I caught her smiling at the screen more than once. That soft, private smile that used to be reserved for me. One night, I asked her about it. We were washing dishes together, something we always did as a team, her washing and me drying. "Who are you texting so much lately?" I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Oh, just Sarah from work," she replied without looking at me. "We are coordinating this big project." Sarah was her colleague, someone she mentioned occasionally. I accepted the answer because I wanted to believe it. Because doubt feels like betrayal when you love someone. Kyle started showing up at our place more frequently, always when I was working late or out running errands. Madison explained he was going through a rough time after breaking up with his girlfriend of 2 years. He needed support, needed friends, and I got it. Kyle was my best friend. Of course he would come to us. Of course Madison would be kind to him. That is who she was. That is who I thought she was. One Tuesday evening I left work early because a client meeting got canceled. I texted Madison to let her know I would be home by 5 instead of 7, but she did not respond. When I walked through the door at 5:15, I heard voices from the living room. Kyle and Madison were sitting on the couch closer than necessary, watching some horror movie on the television. They both jumped when they heard me come in. "Hey man," Kyle said, his voice just a little too loud, a little too cheerful. "We were just hanging out." Madison laughed, said she got scared during a jump scare, and Kyle was making fun of her. I looked at the space between them, the way Madison's hand was pulling away from somewhere near Kyle's knee. Something cold settled in my stomach, but I pushed it away. I was being paranoid. They were just friends watching a movie. 2 weeks later, Madison changed her phone password. We had always known each other's codes, never made a big deal about privacy because we had nothing to hide. Or so I thought. When I asked her about it one morning while she was getting ready for work, She said her company's IT department required everyone to update their security settings. Something about a data breach. It sounded reasonable. Everything sounded reasonable when you desperately wanted to believe. Kyle stopped texting me as much. Before we would message back and forth about sports, share dumb memes, make plans to catch a game at our usual sports bar. But suddenly he was always busy, always tired, always had some excuse. I invited him to watch the playoff game at my place like we did every year. He said he was exhausted from work travel and needed to rest. The next day, Madison mentioned Kyle had stopped by to pick up some tools he left in our storage closet. I did not remember him leaving any tools. A week after that, I came home early again because our afternoon meeting wrapped up faster than expected. I heard Madison's voice coming from the bedroom talking on the phone. She was laughing, that genuine, carefree laugh I had not heard directed at me in months. When she saw me standing in the doorway, she ended the call so fast, she fumbled her phone. "Just talking to my sister," she said, but I knew her sister's voice. That was not her sister. "Who was that really?" I asked. "A new coworker," she said, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "Her name is Jennifer. We are becoming friends." The lie sat between us like broken glass. I started noticing other things. A brand of soda Kyle liked appearing in our fridge. Madison saying Kyle had stopped by to grab something when I was at work. The way she started dressing nicer on days she claimed to be working from home. The smell of cologne in our apartment, that was not mine. Each detail was small enough to dismiss on its own, but together they painted a picture I did not want to see. My chest would tighten every time I walked through our front door, afraid of what I might find. But I kept telling myself I was wrong. I had to be wrong. This was my wife. This was my best friend. People like them did not do things like this. It was a Friday afternoon in late September when the truth finally cornered me. My company was hosting a team-building event at some ropes course an hour outside the city. I had signed up weeks ago but decided that morning I did not want to go. I told my manager I was feeling off, not quite sick, but not right either. He let me leave after lunch. I drove home in the warm autumn sun, windows down, trying to enjoy the weather, trying not to think about the knot that had taken up permanent residence in my gut. Kyle's car was parked in front of our building when I pulled up at 3 in the afternoon. My first thought was, maybe he was finally reaching out, wanting to hang out like old times. Then I remembered I had not told anyone I was coming home early. I sat in my car for a full minute, keys still in the ignition, staring at that familiar silver sedan. Part of me wanted to drive away. Part of me knew I needed to go inside. I used my key, opening the door as quietly as possible, and I do not know why I was being quiet. The living room was empty. Madison's purse was on the counter, Kyle's jacket on the chair, and then I heard it. Sounds coming from our bedroom. Not talking. Not laughing. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. My hands went numb. My legs felt like someone had filled them with concrete. Every second I stood there felt like an hour. I do not remember making the decision to walk to the bedroom door. I do not remember turning the handle. But suddenly, I was standing there looking at my wife and my best friend in the bed I had shared with her for 3 years. Madison screamed. Kyle scrambled up, reaching for his clothes, his face going white. "Nolan, I can explain," he started, but his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Madison pulled the sheet around herself, tears already streaming down her face. "Please, Nolan, please let me explain." I could not speak. Words existed somewhere, but I could not reach them. I just stood there looking at them, and the strangest thing happened. I did not feel angry. I felt nothing. Complete and total emptiness, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left just a shell standing there. Kyle took a step toward me. "Bro, I can explain," he said again. I held up my hand and he stopped. I looked at Madison one more time. Her eyes were wide, terrified, but underneath the fear was something else. Relief, maybe. Like she was tired of hiding. Like getting caught meant she did not have to pretend anymore. I turned around and walked out. Madison came running after me, wearing my bathrobe, her voice breaking. "Nolan, please, we need to talk. Please do not leave. Let me explain." I grabbed my car keys from the hook by the door. "Where are you going?" she cried. I did not answer. I walked out of that apartment and got in my car and drove without knowing where I was going. Tears blurred my vision so badly I had to pull over twice. I ended up at a parking lot near the lake, the same lake where Madison and I had our first date. I sat there as the sun went down, watching the water turn from blue to gray to black. My phone would not stop buzzing. Messages from Madison. "I am so sorry. It just happened. Please come home so we can talk." Messages from Kyle. I never meant for this to happen. You are my best friend. I am sorry. I turned off my phone and sat in silence. I thought about the last 3 years. Every kiss, every dinner, every time she said I love you. Were any of those moments real, or had I been living in a fantasy the whole time? I thought about Kyle, all the games we watched together, the nights we stayed up talking about life and dreams and stupid guy stuff. How long had he been lying to my face? How long had they been laughing at me behind my back? I felt like the biggest fool who ever lived. When the sun came up Saturday morning, I started my car and drove back to the apartment. Not because I forgave them. Not because I wanted to work things out. But because I needed to get my things and make a decision about what came next. I had spent all night thinking. And somewhere between the darkness and the dawn, something hardened inside me. A resolve. A clarity. They had taken enough from me. They were not taking anything more. Madison was still awake when I walked in at 7 a.m. She looked terrible eyes, swollen face blotchy, sitting on the couch in yesterday's clothes. She stood up the second she saw me. "Nolan, I am so sorry." She started, her voice hoarse. It was a mistake. It meant nothing. I stopped her with one question. "How long?" She hesitated, and I knew the answer was going to hurt. 3 months, she finally whispered. 3 months. Not a drunken mistake. Not one moment of weakness. 3 months of planning, of sneaking around, of lying to my face every single day. How many times had I kissed her goodbye in the morning while she was counting down hours until she could see him? How many times had Kyle sat in my living room drinking my beer while already planning his next time with my wife? "Do you love him?" I asked, my voice flat and cold. "I do not know," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I am confused. I love you, but I also have feelings for him. I do not know what I want." I nodded slowly. That was all I needed to hear. I walked past her into the bedroom, pulled my old suitcase from the closet, and started packing. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, a few books. Madison stood in the doorway watching me. "What are you doing?" she asked, panic rising in her voice. "We can work through this. Couples, therapy, marriage counseling, whatever you want. Just please do not give up on us." I zipped up the suitcase and looked at her. "You can have everything I said. The apartment, the furniture, all of it. I just need you to sign the divorce papers when they come." She gasped, like I had punched her. "You are not even going to fight for us," she said, and there was anger mixing with the tears now. "There is nothing left to fight for," I said, and walked past her one last time. I could hear her crying as I carried my suitcase to my car. I did not look back. My older brother, Grant, lived 2 hours north in a quiet town, where everyone knew everyone, and nothing much happened. I showed up at his door that Saturday afternoon with a suitcase, and a face that must have said everything because he just stepped aside and let me in. "You can stay as long as you need," he said. "Guest room is yours." He did not ask questions, did not push me to talk, just gave me space and time, and I will always love him for that. The first few days were the worst. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head, looking for signs I missed, wondering what I could have done differently, wondering if I was not enough, if I had failed somehow as a husband. Grant would knock on my door around noon, tell me to eat something, leave a sandwich outside if I did not answer. I took 2 weeks off work, told my boss I had a family emergency. It was not a lie. By the second week, something shifted. I woke up one morning and realized I could either let this destroy me, or I could use it to rebuild. I started running every morning. Not jogging running. I would push myself until my lungs burned and my legs shook, and I could not think about anything except putting one foot in front of the other. The physical pain felt cleaner than the emotional kind. More honest. I had been carrying an idea around in my head for almost 5 years. A platform that connected freelance tech workers with small businesses that needed short-term help but could not afford full-time employees. Every company I had worked for struggled with this. They needed a developer for 3 months or a designer for a specific project, but hiring full-time was too expensive, and finding good freelancers was a nightmare. I had sketched out plans, done market research in my spare time, built financial projections. But I never pulled the trigger. Madison always said it was too risky. "Keep the stable job," she would say. "We have bills to pay. Wait until we have more savings. Wait until the timing is better." Now I had nothing to lose. My savings account had about $30,000 money. I had been squirreling away for years from bonuses and tax returns. I could either use it to start over in another rental apartment and another safe, boring job, or I could bet on myself. I spent a week building a detailed business plan. I found a freelance developer named Simon through an online forum. He was a brilliant guy from Mumbai who had moved to the States 3 years earlier and was struggling to get consistent work. I showed him my idea and his eyes lit up. "This could actually work," he said. "Let us build it." We worked 16-hour days. I learned basic coding so I could understand what Simon was building. We tested features, fixed bugs, argued about user interface design at 2 in the morning over video calls. I lived on instant noodles and coffee. Grant would come home from his job at the hardware store and find me still at my laptop. Eyes, bloodshot fingers flying across the keyboard. "You are going to make yourself sick," he would say, but he was smiling. He could see I had found something to pour myself into, something that was mine. 3 months in, I filed for divorce. The papers were straightforward since we did not have kids or own property together. Madison signed them without contest. I heard through a mutual friend that she and Kyle were officially together now, posting pictures on social media, acting like they had found some great love story. It stung, but not as much as I expected. Every time I felt that old pain trying to creep back in, I would throw myself harder into building my business. They had taken my past. I was not letting them take my future. 6 months after I walked out of that apartment, we launched the platform. I named it Linker. The first 2 weeks were brutal. We had 5 users sign up. 5. I started wondering if Madison had been right, if I should have played it safe. But Simon kept saying, "We just needed time needed to keep improving." And he was right. In month 3, a startup in Silicon Valley found us. They needed to hire an entire team of freelancers for a rush project, and they needed them fast. Linker matched them with a team in 72 hours. The project was a massive success, and that startup started telling everyone they knew about us. Users went from 50 to 500, then 500 to 5,000. A year after launch, we had 20,000 active users, and were processing 6 figures in revenue every month. I hired 3 employees. We rented a small office space. A venture capital firm reached out asking if we wanted funding. I negotiated hard, made sure I kept majority control, and took enough money to scale up properly. 2 years after the worst day of my life, Linker was one of the top platforms in our space. I moved back to my old city, but this time I bought a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. I was not trying to show off. I just wanted to wake up every morning and see possibility. See proof that I had built something real. Something no one could take from me. I went on a few dates. Met some interesting women. Nothing serious. I was not ready to trust like that again, and I was honest about it. Most appreciated the honesty. Some stuck around anyway, hoping they could change my mind. But I was focused on growing the business, on building a life I could be proud of. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. Stronger than before. More sure of my own worth. 2.5 years after I found them together, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer. I was working late at the office, reviewing quarterly projections, trying to decide if we should open a West Coast branch, but something made me pick up. "Hello," I said. There was a pause, then a familiar voice. "Nolan, it is me, Kyle." I sat back in my chair, staring at the city lights through my office window. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice neutral. "I know I have no right to call," he said. He sounded tired, older somehow. "But I need to talk to you. Can we meet?" Every instinct told me to say no and hang up. But curiosity won. "Give me one reason why I should," I said. "Because I owe you the truth," he replied, "and an apology. A real one." "Fine," I said. "Tomorrow. 6 p.m. That coffee shop on Maple Street." And then I hung up before he could say anything else. I got there first the next evening, ordered a black coffee, and sat at a table in the back. Kyle walked in 10 minutes late, looking nothing like the confident guy I used to know. His hair was messy, there were dark circles under his eyes, and he had lost weight, the unhealthy kind where your clothes hang off you. He sat down across from me without ordering anything. "Thanks for coming," he said. I did not respond, just waited. He took a deep breath and started talking. "Madison and I broke up 6 months ago," he said. I watched his face, looking for what I did not know. It was good at first. We thought we had found something real. True love or whatever. But it fell apart fast. She started blaming me for everything. Little things, big things, everything was my fault. Then I caught her texting some other guy. When I confronted her, she said he was just a friend. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Sound familiar?" I realized. "She has a pattern," Kyle continued. "She is never faithful to anyone. We fought constantly. She would throw it in my face that I ruined my friendship with you for her. said I was pathetic. We finally ended it after a huge fight where she told me she never really loved me anyway. I lost my job because I kept showing up late distracted. My boss got tired of my excuses. Now I am working for some tiny company making half what I used to make. I threw away the best friendship I ever had for someone who did not deserve either of us. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I am not asking for forgiveness, he said. I do not deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you were right to walk away, that you did not lose anything worth keeping. I sat there feeling absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no vindication, just empty. I appreciate you telling me, I finally said, but that is your journey, not mine. I moved on a long time ago. He nodded, wiping at his eyes. I heard about your business, he said. You are doing incredible things. I am genuinely happy for you, man. Really? I stood up. Take care of yourself, Kyle, I said, and left him sitting there. Walking out of that coffee shop, I realized I did not feel closure because I did not need it. I had already closed that door and built an entire new house. A week later, an email appeared in my inbox from Madison. Subject line, I am sorry. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. The message was long, rambling, full of apologies and explanations. She talked about going to therapy, working on herself, realizing she had deep issues with commitment and self-worth. She was not asking to get back together, she wrote. She just wanted my forgiveness so she could move forward with her life. The email ended with, I saw an article about you in a business magazine. You built something amazing. I am proud of you. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. I did not respond right away. I let it sit for 3 days, reading it occasionally, trying to figure out how I felt. Finally, I wrote back something short. I forgive you. Not for you, but for me. I hope you find what you are looking for. Take care. Then I blocked her email address. Not out of anger, but because I did not need that door cracked open anymore. Looking back now, I can see the whole arc of it. The man I was before. The man who played it safe and trusted too easily and thought comfort was the same as happiness. The destruction that forced me to rebuild from nothing. And the person I became in the process, someone who knows his own strength, who took the worst moment of his life and turned it into the catalyst for his best years. I do not thank them for what they did. Betrayal is still betrayal, and the pain was real. But I thank myself for how I responded. For choosing to build instead of destroy. For betting on my own potential when I had every reason to give up. Linker is more than a business now. It is proof that you can lose everything you thought mattered and discover you are capable of so much more than you knew. I have good people in my life now. Grant, who gave me a safe place to fall apart and put myself back together. Simon, who took a chance on some heartbroken guy with a wild idea and helped build it into reality. A small circle of friends who know the whole story and love me anyway. And I have myself back. The version of me that is not defined by who loves me or who left me, but by what I choose to build with my own 2 hands. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I never walked in on them that Friday afternoon. If I had stayed at that team-building event and come home at the normal time. Would they still be sneaking around? Would I still be living that half-life, working a job I tolerated, dreaming about taking risks but never taking them? Maybe. Probably. And I would have thought I was happy because I did not know any different. The truth is, sometimes the people who break you are actually setting you free. They smash the comfortable cage you built around yourself and force you out into the open air. It is terrifying at first. But then you realize you can fly you just never tried before because you were too afraid of falling. And the best revenge is not making them regret losing you. The best revenge is building a life so full and so rich that you forget they were ever part of it in the first place. I still think about that afternoon sometimes. The sound of Madison's scream. The look on Kyle's face. The numbness that filled me up as I walked out that door. But now when I think about it, I do not feel the pain anymore. I feel grateful. Grateful that I found out. Grateful that I did not waste another year or 10 years or a lifetime. Grateful that I discovered what I was capable of when I stopped waiting for permission and just started building. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over. Today, I know it was just beginning. And that makes all the difference. So if you have ever had someone betray your trust, take everything you thought was solid and turn it to smoke. I want you to know something. You get to choose what happens next. You can let it break you, or you can let it remake you into something stronger. The pain is real. The grief is real. Honor that. Feel it. But do not let it be the end of your story. Let it be the beginning of something better. Something you build with your own hands. something no one can ever take away. Have you ever had to rebuild after a betrayal? What would you have done in my situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I would love to hear your stories. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about turning pain into power. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that your worst day does not define you. What you do next does. Take care of yourselves out there.